Welcome to It's All Mental, a podcast from Every Turn Mental Health. Mental isn't a bad word. There's no health without mental health. We're here to talk about every high and low, no limits, just good conversation. Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode of It's All Mental. I'm Emily Evans, Every Turn's Chief Commercial Officer, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Julie. Julie Swann is owner and founder of Swann Fit, and she's here to talk to us and have a conversation all around moving for mental health. Julie also happens to be my best friend, so this is a particular nice thing for me to do today, to have a really good conversation around a subject I'm also particularly passionate about. So huge welcome, Julie. If we can just get started by you just telling us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Swann Fit, that would be lovely.
Sure. Lovely to be here today. Bit different for us as besties that we're in this more formal environment. So Swann Fit, I founded Swann Fit 3 years ago. It's just coming up to 3 years. And when I became a mum to twins, so I had an elder one, and when I became a mum to twins, I really had to rethink what I was going to do, because traditional 9-to-5 working, childcare, the costs were going to be quite high. It was going to be quite challenging. So I started having a look at what my skill set was, and I've always been really passionate about fitness and movement and sport and exercise. And so I decided to train as a personal trainer, and we moved to a new house, which we were lucky enough to have an old barn as part of, and I was able to convert that into a gym. So it was very much a leap of faith. Didn't quite know where my clients were going to come from, what my business was going to look like. And 3 years later, I've been running the business really successfully. Like, I've been very lucky. Lots of friends started off being clients. Mums like me, very busy lives, and who just want to stay a little bit fitter, a little bit healthier. And then word of mouth, and now I have up to 70 women coming to me on a weekly basis for classes and one-to-one, and I do a few lifestyle change programs as well. So that is what Swann Fit is. And my background, I've always been passionate about fitness. I've done a few various jobs. One of them was with England Rugby, so I did have a sport background, and then I just used sort of my passion and my little bit of knowledge to just decide this was the best route for me, and it's worked out.
Fabulous. And obviously I know all about Swann Fit from knowing you as well, and it has been amazing to see the growth in it over 3 years, a pretty short space of time. And again, I know from all the reviews that you get and the feedback that you get how impactful it is to the people, the women that you're supporting. And I think what I've seen from the feedback as well is it has been as much about people's physical health, physical fitness, as much as their mental health, and the sense of community that you've brought to the people who come to Swann Fit classes as well, and how that's been a huge part and hugely impactful. So that's been amazing to see. I guess particularly on the piece in terms of moving for mental health and the subject of today's episode, is there anything that you would say that you've seen particularly, or you've experienced particularly personally, or through Swann Fit and the people that you're supporting, which has kind of shown how moving, exercise can be beneficial for mental health?
Yeah, absolutely. The two are intrinsic in my experience. So on a personal level, in terms of my mental health, remaining fit and healthy, being active, it's completely linked to my mental well-being and my ability to show up as mum, as a friend, as someone who's just happy to get out of bed in the morning. Training for me is a way of life, is a way of coping and putting myself first. I see the same with the women that come and join me. They aren't necessarily your sportiest people. They weren't playing hockey and netball at school. They didn't enjoy going to the gym in their 20s, like I was lucky enough to. But they found Swann Fit later on in life, and they found exercise that suits them. And they are there namely because they enjoy it. There is, I think, what a lot of women come to, men as well, they come to exercise with a sense of I should be doing this, but actually through enjoyment they stick with it. And it is about finding something that does work for you, and probably using your starting point as a way of developing, recognize your starting point. If you aren't doing anything at the moment, or not much, let's not suggest you should go and run a 10k. It could be just a matter of upping your steps a little bit each day. It could be taking movement breaks from your desk. And that is going to give you a sense of achievement. So seeing the sense of achievement that a lot of the women get from making a class and then increasing their weights, or feeling like they coped better during the class and they didn't feel so out of breath. That sense of achievement, it's incremental in terms of the progress they're making. It's small steps that really will add up. So one of the things that I think is huge for your mental well-being is that sense of achieving something, and that's what you really can do through exercise, whether you are starting out with a movement break and getting into a habit of 3 of those a day, and you set a phone alarm, or you do a couch to 5k, and something a little bit more formal. It's a sense of achievement can really help your mental well-being.
Yeah, totally. And I really love what you were talking about there in terms of starting with enjoyment and understanding your starting point, but also it doesn't have to be something huge that you're looking to achieve. Actually, if you kind of start with doing whatever works for you, whatever you enjoy as a starting point, that's a really good way to start. I definitely recognize that from my own exercise and training over the years. I think through my 20s when we were training together, it was very much kind of get fitter, get stronger. We were looking at events to go for, and I still do some of those, but actually now movement is much more around enjoying it. So running is a really good example, whereas kind of previously I would have been trying to run and get faster every week and set new PBs. Actually, my goal now is just to run and enjoy it. And I know if I enjoy it, that's going to give me more motivation to then continue to do that. So
I talk quite often with my clients about motivation, that we have this perception that you're either motivated or you're not, and that's not true. Motivation isn't something we just have. It will grow from a sense of achievement and progress. There are days when I have no desire to go to the gym, and that might be getting up early, or it might be in the middle of the day when I've got a free day and I'm thinking I should go to the gym, I must go to the gym, I must train. And sometimes I have no motivation, but it's just about doing something small will always drive your sense of achievement. And I talk about like a progression motivation loop. It's once you start doing something, then the motivation will grow. And the bit that people get out of balance is that they go too big too soon. Okay, deciding I'm going to go and run a 10k, or I'm going to go and do an hour of HIIT class at my local CrossFit gym. When you aren't doing much, that's where you're going wrong. Just small steps forward, and then you're going to feel, oh, that was quite nice, that was quite manageable, that was quite good, and it will grow, develop. You'll gain that motivation.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, it's not like it's a kind of something that just switches on automatically and suddenly you're motivated all the time. I think it's definitely days where you'll feel more motivated and then others where you won't, and going with that. But I was having a similar conversation last week where I was saying, again, personally, if you can get past that point of maybe not feeling as motivated on a certain day, but actually just doing something, I don't think there's ever been a time where I've done that and then not felt good off the back of it, again, for my mental health as much as for my physical health.
100%. And even last night, my 7 o'clock group, was it last year? We're on Tuesday, aren't we? Last night was a bank holiday. And so my 7 o'clock group, they've had a busy weekend. They've probably done lots of house. It seems everyone's been doing DIY and gardening and things this weekend. They've had a busy day with their families, and so many of them walked in the door going, I am not feeling it. And every single one of them walked out the door going, I'm so glad I came. You never regret Swann Fit workout is what I say.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. And I think there's so many resources out there now. There's so many ways that you can be active. You know, you just do a Google search of a 5-minute beginner workout and you'll have hundreds of options. 5-minute stretch sequence. So I'm always encouraging my clients who are desk bound because of, you know, work, that taking a 5-minute movement break, or while the kettle is boiling, or while something's, you know, in the work microwave in the staff room, 5 minutes is nothing, but it will make you feel so much better, and give you a mental break from maybe what's going on in your life and work, and also that physical movement is just going to be so good for when you do then sit back down at your desk. You're going to hold yourself better. So that's something that I'm always trying to encourage people, just a little bit, and you will never regret it.
Yeah. And it's those little habits again, isn't it? Again, I was having a really similar conversation the other day, that if you're already going to the kettle, if you're already going, you know, getting up from your desk to do something, to make your lunch or to do something, if you just attach that extra little movement habit to what you're already doing, it's again incremental, fairly small in terms of effort, but actually if that becomes something that you can build and build and build on, that's
the cumulative effect is just going to grow. There's a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits, and he talks about habit stacking, and it's that when you associate different environments or things going on in your life, and you try and stack something that's already happening on top to build that habit. So it could be going to the kettle, and you know, you could hold a wall sit while the kettle's boiling. You could do some push-ups on the kitchen counter. So we're not suggesting you need to be down on the floor on your knees, but just that you know, slight gradient from the kitchen counter, and just a little bit of movement. You're just going to feel so much better for doing those kind of things. That physical health linked to that mental health.
Yeah. And for people who are listening to this, or thinking about wanting to do a bit more movement, maybe they are struggling with their mental health, or maybe they just know that it's starting some kind of exercise would be beneficial for their well-being, but they might be feeling a bit intimidated. You've mentioned a few things in terms of Googling 5-minute workouts or things that you can add to your day. Have you got any other tips for people who are looking to get started with some kind of movement and some kind of exercise?
Yeah, absolutely. To echo what we said, let's first of all identify what's our starting point. So what would be a 5% improvement or a 10% improvement on your activity? We don't have to hit 50, 60, 70%. I think identifying, you know, a goal and setting yourself up with a goal, and then thinking, right, well, what are the stages I need to get to? Those actions I need to tick off to get to my goal. So say it is increasing your steps. And it doesn't have to be every day. That's another thing that people sort of set themselves up to fail, that I must do 8,000 steps every day or 6,000 steps every day, or I failed. It could be just on a Saturday and Sunday when life is a bit slower, or maybe on the days that you work from home, so you could get up a bit earlier, you don't have a commute to do. So you might have to consider, right, how am I going to get these steps in now? Is it getting out of bed a little bit earlier? Is it going for movement breaks, so it's just adding 50 steps around the house or around the office every so often? It might be turning up to meetings 10 minutes earlier. So the goals are fantastic, but actually having an action plan that works back from the point that you're at now to how you achieve that goal is the secret, because it doesn't happen overnight. It's very easy to say, I will, you know, from today onwards hit my 6,000, 8,000 steps. I will go to the gym 3 times a week. But actually identifying how that's going to work in your wider life. You know, you will have responsibilities, you will have limited time. No one is time rich these days. So you really have to think that bit through. So that would be a little bit of advice. Identify your goal and then some actions. And it might be talking to people around you and asking for some help. So it could be that your partner needs to do a school pickup or a school drop off because you want to get out of bed and use that time to go for a walk. It might be talking to a friend and saying, you know, we meet for coffee quite often. Could we go on a walk while we drink our coffee? And I think also surrounding yourself with people who have the same values and are on the same journey as you, and that they may not be around in your life, you know, they may not be in your friendship circle or in your family, but actually that's one benefit of, say, social media, is that you can go and find people who are trying to increase their steps, who are trying to develop healthier habits, and make connections with them and see their journey and feel like you're not on your own.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so right and so beneficial when you do find that. Again, both from a kind of sense of community, from a sense of accountability. You mentioned earlier in like the group that turned up, and I'm sure a big part of them coming to Swann Fit classes is turning up for each other as well. And again, I know from personal experience, if I've organised to train with somebody or go for a run with somebody, even it's on those days then where I really don't feel like it. Often I run on a Thursday evening, and I often really don't feel like it come kind of 6 o'clock, but I know I've made that commitment. That can make a huge amount of difference, can't it? But also, again, it's that opportunity to connect with people and have those conversations, which are just so beneficial for your mental health and well-being whilst you're exercising and getting that physical benefit at the same time.
So one of the things that I think the women really love about Swann Fit is that it is a community, and like you say, they are turning up for each other. So I run groups of 7, and the ladies will book a block of 6, and so they know that those 7 women are their little tight-knit community. And we have a WhatsApp group, and it's really nice that everyone will text each other and say, oh, looking forward to seeing tomorrow, we're going to get our sweat on, oh, last week's workout was so hard but I loved it, etc. And I think going to find your community where you live, and see what opportunities there are is a really good idea. So if you think of a running club, I think the days of running clubs being, you know, elite runners and you have to, you know, be a certain speed, run a certain distance, those days are gone. You can now turn up to a running club as a complete beginner and you'll be welcomed with open arms, and you'll be supported and coached to your level, and then you will be encouraged to progress and supported to progress, but there will be no sort of I turn up on night 1 and I'm expected to do hill sprints. So running clubs, gym groups, so you know, quite often community gyms, just your local leisure centre, will have classes, and there will be the same faces every week, and you will start to just chat and find out that, you know, oh, I'm not looking forward to this because my child was up in the night, or, you know, oh, I've got to go to the dentist in a minute, and just those little connections that you make, then you might exchange numbers, and then all of a sudden you've got your community, and the exercise becomes not the whole focus. It's about going to hang out with a mate, and the exercise becomes a bonus, and then the physical and mental changes that you're getting, the improvement in quality of life, is also a bonus. So sort of turning it on its head and looking for the community and seeing the sport, the exercise, the activity as a byproduct, as a bonus, is another way of looking at it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it also helps with then when you might have a bit of a kind of setback in what you're doing. And I was really interested in your perspective on this, because I think it links to what we were talking about earlier, where sometimes you think you've got to do this thing and it's got to be every day, and if you don't do it every day, you failed. Or like, even if you do it for a few weeks, I think it's really common, isn't it, to start something, do it, you know, and be really successful over a short period of time, but it's kind of sustaining those habits for a longer time that is more challenging. A community is, you know, building your community is definitely really beneficial to that. But have you got any other tips for people who maybe have got some experience? Maybe they've done a Couch to 5K previously, maybe they completed it, maybe they haven't, or they've started something and they know actually it's sustaining it is the challenging thing. I guess if they're at that point of feeling like they've had a bit of a setback, have you got any other advice for people?
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably the thing I see the most of in terms of the struggle. It is that we tend to go all or nothing, and we are very conscious of failure. We interpret it as failure if we hit below what we did last week. So one of the analogies I try and give to my clients is that it's like flying an aeroplane. So you've got 20, 30, 50 buttons and options in front of you for flying your aeroplane, and you're going along and the wind will change, and there will be other aeroplanes that you've got to avoid and fly around, and these 50 buttons or knobs, you're tweaking them all the time, and sometimes everything is smooth sailing, so you only have to tweak a little bit, and sometimes the wind is picking up and there's a storm coming and this, that and the other, and you as the pilot of your ship needs to tweak quite a lot more and change a lot more, and this is life. And so your exercise dial, your the dial that you is dedicated, and it could be 5, 6, 7, 8 dials dedicated to your well-being, are going to always need to be just tweaked, and they're going to turn down and they're going to turn up. And so if one of the things that we talk about is having a range, so you would have a range for your exercise. So it could be that you set out that plan A is three training sessions a week, or 8,000 steps 4 days a week, or I'm going to go cold water swimming twice next week, and I'm going to have a walk with a friend. And that could be plan A, but actually your range means you've got a plan B, you've got a plan C, you've got a plan D. But the point is you're still doing something. Plan D, whether that is now, I just got up today and had 3 movement breaks. Yesterday I went cold water swimming and I ran and I did this and I did that, but actually I've still got a plan, and that range is, thinking about it in terms of a range, is quite useful. So we can all aim for plan A, but life, whether it's that we've got childcare issues, whether there's a big deadline at work, whether we've had an argument with our partner, whether there's a hormonal change, we could be on our period or whatever, you know that you have got plan A, but plan B, C, D are all options, and they're all valid, and you should feel proud of yourself for doing any of those. It's when we flip from plan A to nothing, plan A, nothing, plan A, nothing, oh, I've hit nothing again, I feel like a failure. And that's when we're never going to have motivation to do any of plan A, B, C, D.
Yeah, I love that. Resonate with loads of it again. And I think it's really good advice when you're starting off with making a plan to consider plan B, C, D as well. And like you said, not thinking of those plans as failures, but just alternative options to consider when something does happen, which inevitably it will at some point. But you've got something to fall back on as well. I really love that.
Yeah, we've got limited energy. So, if the energy has to go into children at that point or work at that point, it is obvious and, it's clear that the energy that we'll put towards exercise or our well-being is going to have to go down. But it's just the key is being able to sort of transition and ride that and not beat yourself up about it. Because as soon as you go down the route of beating yourself up and feeling like a failure, that's when you'll do, oh, screw it, what's the point? So yeah, that's something I'd try and get people to think about, is that range, ride the wave, fly the aeroplane, change the dials.
Love it. Thank you so much. You've given loads of brilliant advice, amazing perspectives from your personal experience and everything you're doing through Swann Fit. So thanks so much. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you wanted to share with us for today's listeners before we finish up?
I think we've mentioned it a little bit, but talking to the people around you and letting them know that you want to exercise more, whether that is particularly for your mental health and for feeling a little bit more positive, whether it is that you've got a body goal, an aesthetic goal, you want to change the way you look, whether you want to be a better role model for your children and the people around you by being a bit more active, but actually getting the people around you on board with that. They are going to help you. You don't have to do this alone. You're not doing it in some kind of silo, some vacuum. So actually just reaching out and finding people who are going to support you is probably the one bit that I'd really like to underline before we finish.
Yeah, I love that as well. And I think it makes such a difference, doesn't it? And if you do that and you have those conversations with the people around you, there's a really good chance that they're wanting to do similar things or are already doing something which is really similar to what you're doing, that by connecting with them, by sharing what you want to achieve, you might find new ways to do things and support each other by doing that as well.
Exactly. So often we are all aiming, you know, everyone wants better physical health, better mental health. It is a fact movement improves your mental well-being. It is a fact, you know. It's just now about finding the thing that works for you with the people who are your tribe. So yeah, talk to those around you, and I'm sure you will be surprised actually at how open people are to supporting you and probably getting involved.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, Julie. It's been really lovely. We could talk on this subject, I'm sure, for hours and hours more, but that's been, super, super useful, really interesting. And thank you so much, and best of luck for the continued success of Swann Fit. So thank you.
Thanks, it's been my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to It's All Mental, a podcast from Every Turn Mental Health. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to follow, rate and share. See you next time.